people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
News.
Okay, we'll start with this. Recapping Terry Harper's first defense of her newly obtained WBO title in her native Doncaster against the then unbeaten Natalie Zimmerman, who was out of sorts and out of her depth. This was a huge step up in class for her, but I can't say I'm all that impressed with Terry's performance. I'm not really blown away. While she did create clear and apparent separation between herself and Natalie,
She could have did better.
almost immediately I noticed how tense Terry was.
How so?
Looked like she wanted an early finish. She wanted to make a statement, firing the right hand and falling in, so far in that she'd end up in a clinch, at which point things would get chippy on the inside. You guys are far too close to each other to get anything done.
I don't think Terry managed the distance as well as she could have, and her variety of punches.
I think if she would have spent a little bit more time going to Natalie Zimmerman's body, she would have got her to drop her hands more often to open her up for the head punches, because there were many moments in this fight where the body was there. And that's not saying that Terry didn't throw any body shots. She did.
She'd let go of a few here and there, but I felt like she didn't spend enough time on it, that if she would have made a conscious effort to keep going to Natalie's body, not only would she have piled on the damage from those openings, but she would have got her to drop her hands and open her up for some big rights.
Whenever Terry did touch her with the right hand, she would snap Natalie's head back. The difference in power was noticeable, but she wasn't able to deliver it often enough, I think, because she spent more time going to Natalie's head than her body, to the point where the attack became monotonous and somewhat predictable. Natalie's tucked behind that high guard, expecting you to try for head punches.
She's ready.
Terry showed the power to hurt Natalie and showed the power to knock her out, but I don't think she did a good enough job of delivering it, and that's why Natalie was able to go the distance. I don't think Terry did a good enough job of managing the real estate in that ring, falling too far in, smothering her own work.
At the risk of sounding overly critical, I felt like the performance was forced. I felt like it was a bit labored where it should not be, because Natalie Zimmerman is many years older than Terry Harper and has never been in there with somebody like Terry. The level of fighters that Terry has fought: Eva Wahlstrom, Natasha Jonas,
Henna Rankin, Alicia Baumgartner, Sandy Ryan, Rhiannon Dixon. Terry won. And by my count, I feel like she won every single round. But I just don't know. I still felt like it was a lukewarm performance, that it could have been better, and it should have been. There was a bad cut in the 10th and final round that opened up off a clash of heads. Natalie Zimmerman reduced to a bloody mess. I would have been more impressed if that cut would have opened off a punch than a head clash.
But Terry won, and I expected her to win. I can't say that I'm blown away by that performance. Interesting tidbits in association with this fight is that it was a GBM show, not a Matchroom show. And it would appear that as of April of this year, Terry is no longer being managed by her longtime manager, Steffi Bull.
I didn't know that. Ahead of this fight, she signed a managerial contract with 26RR Promotions. Not knowing what the circumstances were of their split, amicable or otherwise, it would seem that Terry's given her decorum an overhaul. For a perspective, Steffi Bull's the one who gave her her start. Steffi Bull actually invested his own money in Terry's career long before Matchroom came into it. She was boxing on his shows.
I don't know what happened.
I don't know if Steffi is still managing fighters. Did he decide to do something else? I don't know if there was a rift between him and Terry. Did something happen that caused the split? Your guess is as good as mine. All we know is that Terry has successfully defended the WBO title, and now she is free to pursue a unification match with either Carolyn Dubois or Beatrice Ferreira, though based on what I saw, I don't think she beats either of them. I think they both overwhelm her. I think they both knock her out.
And I don't say that lightly because I'm a fan of Terry. I have been for years. I've always admired how much she's been able to accomplish not being a member of Team GB, not having a deep amateur background, learning on the job and being very young while she did it. I admire that about her. But the reality of it is, if she fights Beatrice, Beatrice is going to stop her. And the same applies to Carolyn.
Terry's best bet at a successful unification match would have to be with El Paso, Texas' own Stephanie Hahn, newly crowned WBA champion that's set to defend her title over the summer months. Terry can beat her, but the other two?
Forget about it.
Congratulations to her for her successful title defense, but now things get serious. Now things get dangerous.
In men's lightweight news, it was officially announced that unbeaten up-and-comer Floyd Schofield will be taking on former super featherweight champion Tevin Farmer on the undercard of Jake Paul versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. It would seem that Golden Boy Promotions is doing more and more business with the social media influencer turned pugilist, outsourcing many of their fighters to his shows. Zerto, now Floyd.
Many of their fighters, that's just two.
That's a lot when you're talking about Golden Boy Promotions because they don't have the deepest stable.
The hierarchy of thought is simple. Why do a show around Zerto, and why do a show around Floyd Schofield using your own money when you can let Jake Paul spend his on those fighters? And because these are still your fighters, you still get your cut. You still get your percentage at no expense to you.
It's the same with William Zepeda versus Shakur Stevenson on Turkey's Ring Magazine show. It's the same deal. Why do a show around William when Turkey's willing to pay him? Let Turkey pay him, and you still get your cut.
Smart business is what it is. Smart matchmaking when it comes to Floyd, who not but a few weeks ago's name was attached to a potential Abdullah Mason fight. An Abdullah Mason fight that they rejected. How we know?
Floyd's talkative daddy, Mama Sko.
What's going on, y'all? I hope y'all having a good day. I figured I'll address the comments and the news that's out there, the bullcrap about Kid and Mason fight. Alright. Number one, yes, we want to fight Mason, and yes, we will fight Mason, according to Golden Boy and them. But Golden Boy had bigger plans. So yes, Mason offered us $1 million, or their team over there offered $1 million for us to fight. But Golden Boy offered us a 5-year deal for $5 million. Guaranteed 5 years employment, guaranteed we'll be fighting for a title soon. What would you pick?
When Floyd Sr. asks that rhetorical question, it's loaded because of how he's presenting it. It's a loaded question because you don't actually have to choose. If you were confident in your son's abilities, if you were confident that he beats Abdullah Mason, you don't have to choose between $1 million for Abdullah and a $5 million contract with Golden Boy. You can do both if you're confident that he wins. But when you're not confident,
you fight Tevin Farmer, who's coming off of 3 consecutive losses, and in the last 2, he got hit a lot. He got hit quite a bit in the first William Zepeda fight, in the second William Zepeda fight. So what you're getting now is a more tenderized version of that same fighter. Tevin is in a bad way.
The difference between what you get in the American boxing scene and what you get from the British one. I often highlight that Fabio Wortley didn't have to battle an unbeaten David Adilier. He didn't have to battle an unbeaten Fraser Clark. Even now, he doesn't have to battle an undefeated Justice Hooney. When Felix Cash and Denzel Bentley fought each other, That was a battle of the unbeatens when Anthony Joshua and Dillian White first fought. That was a battle of the unbeatens.
Are you noticing a pattern?
You can get two unbeaten British fighters to lay it all on the line and roll the dice long before you can get two Americans to do that. I'm sure that Abdullah Mason is receptive to a Floyd Schofield fight, but the feeling is not mutual. They chose to fight Tevin Farmer.
And then you wonder why the British boxing scene is a more fertile, more vibrant, and more exciting boxing scene right now than the American one is, in spite of all America's history and lineage in the sport. Right now, the British boxing scene is better.
It's booming, where America's is in decline, and these business-minded fighters is why guys like Floyd. It's predictable. No, you didn't expect Floyd to take on Abdullah Mason after he just ducked Shakur Stevenson, and we all know that's what he did.
I knew the fight with Abdullah wouldn't happen, but that's the point. It's monotonous. It's predictable. It's boring.
He pulled out on Ashton Silva some time ago. Then he pulled out on Shakur Stevenson, supposedly because he was ill.
Nobody believes him. I don't believe him.
And I never believed he was going to fight Abdullah Mason. But this Tevin Farmer fight, it's right on time. Now, it wouldn't be so bad if not for Floyd's talkative father. He actually makes the situation worse by talking too much. He enjoys being on camera.
He likes the sound of his own voice. Remember how Floyd's name got attached to Shakur's in the first place? It was his talkative daddy volunteering to fight Shakur after William Zepeda dropped out. They were never serious.
But he's the one who threw Floyd Schofield's name in the hat, likely for clout, likely for press, so the journos would write articles about them just to not follow through.
His dad talks too much.
A lot of the heat that Floyd's been getting, it's needless, it shouldn't happen. But if it is happening, it's because of his talkative father. See, he should be able to go into a Tevin Farmer fight without criticism because Floyd is still making his bones as a professional. Fighting a former champion is what he should be doing at this stage in his career and at this age. But if he's open for criticism, it's because of his father.
Yeah, and it's because you ducked another unbeaten fighter like yourself and Abdullah Mason. Shakur Stevenson I can understand, but you didn't want to fight Abdullah, who's in the same place as you.
I get it. Shakur's a lot more experienced. He's a 3-weight world champion. It may be too much too soon, but Abdullah, that's too much too?
A part of me doesn't even hate the Tevin Farmer fight because Tevin is durable. We know that. He went the distance with William Zepeda both times. He's experienced, way more experienced than Floyd, and he's crafty, mid-range to inside. A part of me views this as an acid test for Floyd Schofield. Not half bad, not great either, because the guy's coming off of 3 losses.
How excited am I supposed to get that Floyd Schofield is fighting a guy who just lost to Muratalla and Zepeda 2 times?
How excited are you?
Upstairs in the men's lightweight division, Edwin De Los Santos sees Keyshawn Davis as a much lower level fighter than Shakur Stevenson. Better be careful not to chap Keyshawn's ass, because Keyshawn might make him eat those words. Edwin De Los Santos isn't as impressed by Keyshawn Davis's recent run as much of the boxing world. In fact, the Dominican southpaw doesn't consider Davis even close to the best opponent of his career. That distinction, according to De Los Santos, undoubtedly belongs to Shakur Stevenson. De Los Santos sensed Stevenson became weary of engaging with him once the unbeaten WBC lightweight champion felt his power early in their 12-round fight 18 months ago. Stevenson's skills are nonetheless undeniable, which is why De Los Santos anticipates a more entertaining and winnable fight versus Keyshawn on June 7th at the Scope Arena in Norfolk, Virginia.
Obviously, he's at a much lower level than Shakur. De Los Santos told the ring. Keyshawn has a lot of power, but in terms of boxing, Shakur is on another level.
I don't know that I agree with that. You see, on paper, Shakur is a more accomplished fighter than Keyshawn. But in terms of X's and O's, I don't know that he's on another level so much as he's different. He's just different. He's got a different temperament, different tendencies. One fighter is more willing to engage, while the other is more willing to hang back, but they're both effective at what they do. And that's how I rate the fighters irrespective of their uniqueness. How effective are they with what they're doing?
Shakur is an effective, outboxer when he wants to be, and Keyshawn is an effective offense guy, mid-range to inside guy.
ESPN will televise Davis versus De Los Santos as its 12-round main event 2 weeks from Saturday night. Davis 13-0 with 9 KOs and 1 no contest, and De Los Santos 16-2 with 14 KOs will fight for the WBO lightweight title. Davis won by knocking out previously unbeaten champion Denis Berinchyk in the 4th round of their one-sided championship match February 14th in the theater at Madison Square Garden in New York. Davis, 27, is ranked 2nd among the ring's lightweight contenders, 1 position ahead of Stevenson. De Los Santos, 25, is not listed in the ring's top 10, primarily due to inactivity.
In case you're not aware, Edwin De Los Santos hasn't fought since the Stevenson fight.
De Los Santos of Allentown, Pennsylvania, will fight for the first time on June 7th since a forgettable fight with Stevenson that invited intense criticism because it consistently lacked action. Stevenson, a 3-weight world champion from Newark, New Jersey, defeated De Los Santos by 4 points apiece on the cards of judges Tim Cheatham, Steve Weisfeld, both of whom scored their fight 116-112, and 2 points according to Judge David Sutherland, who credited Stevenson with a 115-113 victory. Davis is more mindful of offense than Stevenson, which makes De Los Santos optimistic about satisfying the fans. I think it'll be more interesting, De Los Santos said, because he's not going to rely on boxing as much as Shakur Stevenson. Davis, who won an Olympic silver medal in August of 2021 in Tokyo, has scored back-to-back quick knockouts over Denis Berinchyk and Gustavo Lemos. Argentina's Lemos came in 6.5 pounds overweight for their November 8th bout at the Scope Arena, yet Davis insisted on moving forward with their fight and annihilated Lemos. The weight didn't matter.
No, he stopped Lemos in 2 rounds.
Dropped the guy 3 times. De Los Santos would have ended his long layoff sooner if not for a blood clot in his left eye that prohibited him from training for 3 months late last year. He returned to the gym in January and happily accepted this title shot last month.
A few passing thoughts. I give it 1 to 2 more fights before Keyshawn Davis moves up to 140. I think he knocks out Edwin De Los Santos. He's going to make him eat his words. And then maybe after that, he can have a unification match with Raymond Muratalla, who's in line to become IBF champion after Vasyl Lomachenko retires. Maybe it happens that way.
That's how it might go down. He's not going to be able to get Gervonta Davis in the ring, and he's not going to fight his old buddy Shakur for his WBC title. I give him 1 to 2 more fights before he moves up and makes things spicy and exciting in the super lightweight division, the 140-pound division. I believe that Keyshawn is not only skilled, but he will be physically stronger, even better at 140, not depleting himself to get down to 135.
All this talk about skill, here's what I think. Shakur is plenty skilled, but he's also boring. Keyshawn is skilled too, but he's not boring.
I get so sick of seeing people in the American boxing scene disparage fighters that favor action over finesse. We're not here for a waltz. This ain't the ballet.
Keyshawn is gonna make Edwin De Los Santos eat those words. You wait and see.
I think he's gonna knock his block off.